Hello and welcome to a live recording of Localization Today. Localization Today is the podcast of Multilingual Media, and on this occasion, once again, welcome. This occasion, we're going to be talking about AI, DeepSeek, and we're going to try to go deeper into the conversation with amazing experts. But before we do that, we want to remind everyone and say hello to everyone who is watching this live on LinkedIn or YouTube, or if you're looking at the recording later, please leave your comments. Please let us know what you are thinking. We will be posting some of the questions and answering them live. Please follow us on Spotify and all of the other podcast places where you listen to things. Please follow us there. Follow us on YouTube, of course. And if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, please do so. Without any further ado, Mila. Oh, yes, one more. So please sign into Localization Today. That's our podcast. That's where this conversation is going to be present. And we also have a great newsletter, right, Mila? Mila is the person helping us. Weekly Digest is the Weekly Digest, and you probably know other great newsletters out there. We can talk about those today as well. But the Weekly Digest is the place where we summarize the information that we get as Multilingual Magazine, the press releases and the news that we find around. If you have any of those, please let us know. If you have news, if you have announcements, you can publish those for free on Multilingual. We will also be publishing there original articles by our writers and partners. So look out for the newsletter. Goes out every Wednesday. Sign up. We have thousands of people there, tens of thousands of people there, and I want to say hello to everyone from different parts of the world. That's a great trend. We like that. We love that. Haley, Oliveira, Millie, if you can please share some of the people out there. From Brazil, we have people from Morocco, Poland, Greece, Portugal, Seattle, Poland, Australia, Italy, Montana, Edinburgh. I've been to Edinburgh. It's amazing. Rio de Janeiro. Great. Thank you, everyone, for making it today. Please keep the comments coming, and then we'll find a way to answer your queries. Mila, if we can let in our amazing guests today, we're gonna have with us AI experts for a live discussion on the topics that we've mentioned before and have shared with you. Veronica Hylák, co-founder of Metalinguist, AI product innovator and host of the AI Almanac, which is also a newsletter. Claudio Fantinuoli, CTO at KUDO, leader in real-time speech translation, and Manuel Herranz, CEO of Pangeanic, leader in AI, machine translation, and NLP innovation. Welcome everyone for this amazing conversation. Veronica, Manuel, and amazing Claudio. How are you all doing?
I'm doing great.
Very good.
Thanks for having us.
That was great.
Fine,
thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for making it today. We're very excited to have you on board for this amazing conversation. Hopefully, we'll be able to have something like this in person at some point, in one of the amazing events we have in our industry. Today, the panel is on DeepSeek, Beyond the Headlines. Before we start, Manuel, Claudio, and Veronica, is there anything you want to say to our amazing audience, which keeps coming from now? I'm just going to, before I get you to say something, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, the Netherlands, the UK, Lithuania, Brazil, Canada, Poland, Ethiopia, Spain, Connecticut, Aranjuez, town in Madrid. Okay. Is there anything, Istanbul? Is there anything you'd like to say before we start, Manuel, Claudio?
Yeah, I'm very glad to be part of the panel, and the fact that you picked me up. And I was not surprised that we had about 1,000 people registered in the first week. And we postponed. How many people are registered here?
1,300. 1,300.
Is a very good number. And I'm not surprised because of the expectations and the shock that DeepSeek has sent through many industries. Well, sent the stock market, Nvidia's shares down on the day. And we're still living, I'm not going to call it a ChatGPT 3.5 moment, but I am going to call it a ChatGPT moment, yes.
Maybe it's even more than that, I would say. Not so much, if you want, for the technology itself, I don't know, we will talk about this, but for all the movement around this technology that is showing the direction of things at many levels that are going to happen. So it's for sure an important moment. And I'm very happy to be here too.
I'm just honored that you guys are spending your Thursday morning or evening with us, and I'm excited to start talking.
Fantastic. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about DeepSeek. Many of us have tried to read as much and watch as many videos from some of you to try to understand what's happening. We thought backstage, and we still think publicly too, that Veronica, you'd be the best person to tell us about and put us up to speed into what has happened and what's currently going on in the conversation about DeepSeek.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell you guys all this, but a few weeks ago, the Chinese AI startup DeepSeek exploded pretty much all over the internet overnight when they released its R1 model. It matches OpenAI's O1 in performance, but there were two kind of game-changing twists at the time. The first was that it was a fully open source model, and the second was that they allegedly achieved this performance with only $6 million, which, to put into perspective, usually that number would be hundreds of millions or even billions. Getting into a little bit of the technical details for like 30 seconds for those that care, basically what they did was DeepSeek flipped the traditional AI training process. Typically, models trained by the giants rely heavily on supervised fine-tuning, which involves teaching models using labeled data that's vetted by humans, but the step is super expensive and labor-intensive. So what DeepSeek did was put reinforcement learning kind of in the driver's seat, and then introduced another training technique called GRPO, Group Relative Policy Optimization, and it's basically an alternative to relying on preset evaluation functions. But ultimately, between all these changes, by pulling an Uno reverse card on the training process, putting reinforcement learning in the driver's seat, supervised fine-tuning in the back, they were allegedly able to train this model to O1 performance with 95% less compute power and cost. So you can understand why everyone was freaking out, because basically it looked like you didn't need to spend the billions of dollars like OpenAI does to achieve the performance equivalent to the leading models. But then it got really confusing and complicated. Three big things kind of shifted the narrative. The first was that $6 million training cost was much higher. DeepSeek had stockpiled tens of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs before the US export bans, meaning the real spend was likely actually like hundreds of millions. The second complication was that OpenAI had accused DeepSeek of illegally distilling its models from OpenAI's technology, stealing its IP, and infringing on its terms of service. If you don't know what distillation is, it involves using outputs from a large model to train a smaller one. And then the third, this is a Chinese-based AI company with servers being hosted in the PRC, meaning user data is subjected to the Chinese. Many international governments immediately, Korea, Australia, Italy, even the EU, have either outright banned it or looking for restrictions. So TLDR version, we have a new Chinese AI model on the block. It's called DeepSeek. It's as good or better than O1 because some language companies are choosing to shift to the DeepSeek model, but we have some things to talk about to kind of go beyond the headlines and understand what's really going on here, and that's why we're here today. So that's the 411.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Veronica. And I was very surprised to know, Manuel, that some know who's behind the DeepSeek development. Who did this? Where does it come from? Because we hear China, but China is not like who in China. Tell me this.
China's very big, and there are lots of people in China. But DeepSeek is actually not the main project. It's a side project of an investment fund called Highflyer. Now, Highflyer, it comes from Swansea, I think, between Hong Kong and Shanghai, let's go on the East Coast. And the main offices are located in Hong Kong. Obviously, Hong Kong is a free area. It's China, but it's not China, as we know. The offices of Highflyer, Highflyer shares offices with the Bank of East Asia. The founder of Highflyer is Liang Wenfeng. This guy is pretty young. I think he's barely 40, if he reaches 40. Has made a fortune in the stock market with algorithms, so he knows about mathematics. And artificial intelligence, what they call DeepSeek then, was a side project for them. They were thinking about developing something similar to what Perplexity AI does. More a search engine with some AI in between. And that grew. When they met some scientists, that they changed completely the project towards LLM building. But the funny thing about Highflyer is that this fund is that, apart from belonging to a very rich man in China, a young man, one of the largest shareholders in the bank is the Bank of East Asia. And the Bank of East Asia found out a couple of days ago 19.99% of the stock belongs to a Spanish bank headquartered in Valencia, where I'm from. Perhaps that's not the reason why you picked me. You probably knew this, and that's why you called me, because you wanted a local voice. The operations are in Barcelona. It's called La Caixa. And that may bring geopolitical, probably have geopolitical implications, because La Caixa is very close to the government. Any government in Spain, whether it's left and right, it doesn't really matter, have very strong industrial holdings in the country and abroad. And probably something that was for them a side or a smaller investment has become a major source of happiness for some years to come.
And this is great to know. Thank you so much for helping us get some context on this. Before we continue, we have people from all around the world listening and watching this. For those that are wondering, this panel is recorded and will be uploaded into our Localization Today podcast. So this is a live recording of the Localization Today podcast. Our amazing guests today also have different places where they come from: MetaLinguist and the AI Almanac, Pangeanic, and KUDO. So thank you so much for making it. People from Sandpoint, Idaho, Greece, Mexico, many others. Remember, if you have any questions, please post them in any of the social media where we're posting this. Send us those questions, and we'll do our best to answer. Definitely, then there are some effects. There's wavelengths have been changing around, just like when you drop something in the water, because of these advancements in the technology, these discoveries as well of these advancements in the technology, whether serendipitously or not. I'm assuming then that some of the global leadership around AI and major players, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Meta, they have to somewhat respond. I've heard, of course, that most of the major corporates in the US will not even be interested. It's just they are going to hack me type thing. So, Claudio, if you can tell us more about what your thoughts are about what leadership could be thinking about or thought about, because now it seems like really old news, like really, really old news, like shifts have happened, or do they continue to happen? Enlighten us, please.
Well, it's very difficult to see behind the scenes in what is happening in the heads and in headquarters of the big corporations and everybody involved in this space. For sure, it's a a small, maybe a big, as Manuel said before, earthquake moment. It's a geopolitical moment. Just to remind you that a few days ago, after where we had a few weeks ago, the American administration with Stargate announced a big investment in AI, DeepSeek coming out, and a few days ago in Paris, very important AI meeting for Europe. The European Commission announced a 2 billion investment joint between industry and the public sector in AI. So what DeepSeek some way caused behind the hype of the technology, behind the advancement in the technology, is really this, somebody called it the Sputnik moment, where there is a arms race, if you want, from the three major parts of the world, actually the two, China and the US, and now also the EU trying to do something there to accelerate, if you want, AI development, because AI is strategic. So what we are seeing is that there is this race, and this race, which is, as I said, geopolitical, will have implication in our space, because the development that is going to be pushed through these big investments will come down to practical things that we will be able to do. And this will translate, obviously, in impacts in our businesses, in our way to interact with technology and so on. But maybe Manuel has something more to say about this.
No, I fully agree. Yeah, I think you're quite on the ball, Claudio. Well, two things I want to say, because Stephen, I see Stephen is here, and you mentioned, Veronica, that DeepSeek is open source. Llama is not open source. DeepSeek is not open source.
Yep.
Open source requires releasing all
Yes,
your
somebody
code,
corrected me. Sorry, it was open weight, not open source. I responded.
Yeah, but we all say open source because okay,
our brains
it's
are
easier to understand. So fine, we know it's not Pepsi, it's Coca-Cola, but we still use one or the other. And then a lot of people tend to confuse LLMs with AI, which is not the same. LLMs are a part of the puzzle, considerable, but considerable piece, but still a piece of the puzzle in artificial intelligence. LLMs are very limited in what they can do. They're text generators, reasoning. People talk about reasoning. I've resisted, and I always said no. I always said that LLMs can't reason. Well, they can't really. You have to apply other technologies like chain of thought and teach it to, in a very structured way, how to reason. But they're trained on massive amounts of data. I think ChatGPT-3 was trained in 20,000 days of reading, something like that. Something that it would take a normal person forever, centuries to read, and then to recall. So machines have already got the better of us because they're scalable. They don't sleep. They can work 24/7. They're never tired. They don't stop for a coffee. But they have two main disadvantages for me. One, they are plugged. If you unplug the machine, it stops working. Okay, we don't work like that. And number two, now I'm talking about AI and not an LLM, is world knowledge. It takes humans are very slow-growing mammals. It takes a human something like 10 years to be 12, 7, 8, 10 years to be really conscious about the environment and what he or she is doing. Mammals tend to be much faster. They're born within hours. They can walk and run. However, the depth of human analysis of the environment, all the visual and audio and verbal information and language information that we have helped us think in a depth that so far nothing has beat a human. They can beat us in translation. They can beat us in mathematics. Calculators beat us in mathematics a long time ago. But in deep reasoning, no. In shallow reasoning at scale, yes. Any machine can beat any of us anytime. But machines do things well, but certain things. Humans do perhaps average a lot of things, but they can do a lot of things.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Claudia. I'm Veronica. One of the things that it's happening after this is that it's confirming to a lot of companies, a lot of people, leaders, that artificial intelligence is something to at least get to know, to understand it at its core, not the mathematics or the technicals of it, but the use cases perhaps that can inspire action. But there are huge concerns on AI data privacy. If you're a company and you want to ensure ethical an adoption of AI and a secured adoption of AI. Can this be done? Is this possible? Where is the conversation?
Well, I mean, the main argument I see is that DeepSeek models can be downloaded and run locally. And it's true, yes, that theoretically removes all of the data privacy concerns and gives you control of your data. If you have the capacity to do that, by all means do it. But that said, I think I had seen data yesterday that there's been roughly 2 million downloads to run that local version. And in contrast, 33.4 million monthly active users in January alone. So the vast majority of DeepSeek users are relying on its web and mobile platforms, meaning their data likely is flowing through Chinese servers. Now, I'm going to preface all of this that this isn't about politics. I'm approaching this through a lens of differing international data usage laws, which are dictated by the country that the data is hosting in. And in this case, in their policy, they stipulate that it's the PRC. So this situation with DeepSeek has caused a lot of privacy and security questions. Their privacy policy alone, really vague. It offers very little information into what data is collected, how it's stored, who it's shared with. And most of the major AI platforms at least specify their data practices, but DeepSeek's policy essentially warns users that they're collecting data. We could be sharing it with third parties. We could be profiling you. We could be sharing it within any necessary government regulated bodies. And even beyond the fundamental data privacy guardrails, I saw the craziest thing in their policy. They warned that even basic communication with their team, like emails, might not be secure. And any action with their team or within their service should be handled with extreme care. Those are their words, not mine. So not only is this privacy policy basically non-existent, the fact that they have explicitly wrote in their policy, handle with this platform with care, your data might not be secure with us. It's particularly troubling, not just in general, but because DeepSeek is a Chinese company, your data is being hosted in Chinese servers, meaning your personal data may be subjected to Chinese surveillance laws. And this is why a lot of government, bans or at least restrictions have kind of come into place. I think another example, their primary login method is by linking a Google account. That raises further risks depending on their API call. It could grant the platform access to profile details, login metadata, potentially even your contacts, which again would be hosted in China and theoretically could give the government request access to Google linked user data. So yeah, I think for me, I would never touch, I would never touch their online version. And it's not just about a lack of a privacy policy and being hosted, in the PRC and having different data privacy, laws, but many data privacy watchdogs around the world, Korea, Belgium, Ireland, have expressed concerns that they're collecting data in a way that is not explicit. Users can't opt out. There's no clear path for requesting data deletion or controlling how long it's stored, and they've been accused of excessive data collection, like keystroke patterns, which doesn't contribute to the improvement of their LLM. So, there's a lot of concerns here, definitely, with the cloud, their version. If you're running it locally, again, that is pretty much eradicated, but not a lot of people have the capacity to do that.
If I can add something, Veronica, you mentioned the ability to download, call it open source, open weight. In any case, everybody can get hold of the model, of the weights, and run it locally. The smaller version can be run really on small computers. I run it on a flight on a quite old MacBook, the small version, and it's quite amazing. And especially, maybe this is a very important point to reflect on. It's at least from my experience, from what I see, an advancement of something that you can download and easily, at least the small versions, deploy on your machine, or this bigger version on servers, an advancement in quality compared to other open source, open weight models like Llama and so on. And this probably is one of the most important things to think about, is this moving, or the possibility to move very fast in the future on the edge, not only especially for privacy reasons. I mean, for example, in the space of speech translation, I think privacy is important everywhere. But if you think about speech translation in very sensitive contexts, live contexts and so on, many people nowadays have fear about relying on applications that are on the cloud, even if you give any kind of contracts and security and so on. There is the perception every AI company will steal your data no matter what. So there is a lot of concerns that are okay, acceptable or not. It's not important now. But there is a tendency, the ability now, this is important for companies to start developing applications, commercial applications, on top of these language models that run on the edge. It's already possible for small application, even on cell phones and so on. For bigger application, speech translation is a very complex application which requires a lot of models at the moment, very powerful models. This is not possible, of course, on the cell phone, but the tendency is that it's getting easier and easier for anybody, not only the big players. This is another important aspect, to plug and play the components that were out of reach until a few, I'm not saying years ago, but months ago, until a few months ago, years ago, to have a very robust and multilingual speech recognition, which is a part of current state-of-the-art speech translation. You had to rely more or less on public APIs, on the big companies that invested a lot to create infrastructure, data collection, and models to run, for example, speech recognition in real time. Nowadays, you start to get really building blocks that are ready-made with very high expenditure to create them, even if this even is going down, where you can take them and you can do everything you want. You can modify them, so fine-tune them, insert them in a pipeline. And this is, in my opinion, the big trend for companies, for LSP, for smaller companies, the ability to create applications that are owned by themselves 100%, which was not possible until recently. And DeepSeek, per se, is not a revolution in this, but it's a clear moment where you can see the tendency, where the trend is going for high quality models.
Yeah, it's up in the field, Claudio. Claudio, I truly agree with you. It's up in the field. There's no true advance in technical advance, something amazing. The way it's been built, yes, but there is engineering It's not AI development. GRPO, okay, it's clever, but there was a paper from, I think it was Geoffrey Hinton, reward is enough. And really the theory is all there. The fact that you can train by reward and scale that. And that paper comes from 2017, 2018, if I remember. So the theory of just use reinforcement learning to teach machines to learn has been around for a few years. Okay. I'm not going to go around about the sanctions and everything. Okay. But not being able to buy or have access to the latest NVIDIAs has certainly, rather than hurt, has spurred the moment for Chinese AI industry. Number one. Number two, to follow what you said, Veronica, well, it's a Chinese company. They have no concept of privacy. Don't expect GDPR or anything like that.
It's just not politics at all.
The mind frame.
Yeah. And I actually see a question here, somebody asking about OpenAI's privacy policy in comparison. And for example, this comparison, OpenAI has GDPR compliance, DeepSeek doesn't. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. It has nothing to do with politics here. It has everything to do with the fact that, certain, legal and security and data privacy guardrails are in place for a lot of the companies that we've been using, and this is not. That's just it.
Yeah, but from a European point of view,
sure.
Okay, so data has been traveling across the Atlantic to San Francisco,
True.
Or at least California, or even service in the States. We're used to people stealing
That's
our
true.
data, and I take a trip to the supermarket to get some milk. Google knows about it. Okay, so another play in the field, whether my trip goes to, if I take a cab with Uber, my trip data goes to Uber. Yep. In San Francisco, and they know how I move. So, okay, but to follow what Claudio was saying, DeepSeek has done a very interesting thing, which is extremely generous. Okay, they left the open weight and they left all the models to download. Okay, no, the major one is the V3s, not the R1. Fine. And they left it open also for companies in the United States. There's no ban on US companies adopting DeepSeek. I know the Marines don't want it. Okay, fine. They will have their reasons. But companies across the globe can adopt. I have, Claudio, you have one. I have the 14B installed in my M1 Mac at home. Not even a very powerful, the latest. Okay. It's not very fast. We have a 14B version in our data center here, and it's Echo LLM. You can go to our website and try it. And in fact, if being critical of the Chinese government or talking about Tiananmen Square is very important for our clients, it's not. We bridged it, we tweaked it, and the 14B version that we host now talks about Tiananmen Square and the Chinese government, and you can ask those questions. But we're just going to open the field to, as Claudio said, more people are going to be able to build more applications and more solutions not on-prem at the client, but at least on-prem at the company. Yeah. This will give data protection people a lot of work, because then more personal data will be flying around. You'll be busy, or you're going to be busy.
And maybe I'm not an expert on data protection, but if you remember also the history of OpenAI ChatGPT, at the beginning was even banned for some time. In Italy, our authority banned it until compliance was secured. And so it's also a process. Maybe things will also, who knows, change for DeepSeek, even if, as far as I understand, that it's really, as you said before, it's not probably the main business. Even now, running accessing DeepSeek is sometimes problematic because they are overrun by people who wanted to try it. And so we will see. It's a dynamic field in all these aspects, technology. data and so on. But here, the really key point is that you can really download for the first time really powerful models.
How do we make that accessible to people that might be a little scary to do? Because again, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, the downloading it, and running it locally completely solves the data privacy concern for the most part. But the concept of downloading and running and deploying locally can be scary for a lot of people. So how do we kind of bridge this new mindset shift that we kind of have to do in order to safely run this model?
I don't know if my answer is correct to your question, but there is a project, or I don't know if I pronounce it very well, Ollama. I think it's
Ollama,
like this, which is a very compact application, very, very small application, super easy to do to use. No technologist is needed to run it. Where you download it, and then you choose just the model that you want to download, among others, the DeepSeek. So it's just an operation that takes a couple of minutes, and then you have on your Mac, I think it runs also on Windows and probably, I guess, also on Linux. And you have on your machine the easy to use model that you can interact with the terminal. Super easy. If you don't like it, you dump it. That's it, and you move on. So I invite many people to try this. It's a super, especially for people that have no background in IT or informatics, and so it's super easy and open source the project, and you can have this gist of flying. That's no internet in the flights I take, for example. Have your computer on your open, and you start experimenting with the model. You start with a small one, which are quite impressive. And by the way, talking about also this reasoning, non-reasoning. Okay, we know that we use anthropomorphic words to describe what AI stuff is doing, but you can really see that's also a bit of difference to other models, the chain of thoughts, so the reasoning that DeepSeek is doing to come to your to the result, which is sometimes really funny. You see, okay, here is totally crazy. Sometimes it's totally crazy, this chain of thoughts, but the result is still somehow okay, which is another interesting phenomenon. You just experiment it. Super easy to do it.
And of course, this is going to trigger use cases, and you've tried some of these yourselves, Manuel. What do you think this DeepSeek and conversation means really for the industry beyond the tool itself? What is it going to allow LSPs? What is it going to allow companies to do that they were not able to do before?
Yeah, well, a lot. We're conducting a study on the quality of their machine translation with several versions, not just the one online that you can access, but also the smaller ones, the 70B and the 14B, and is practically on par with OpenAI or other models. Point here, point there in some language pairs, but it's extremely solid model for translation. The problem is that it's quite verbose. So you have to, whereas with OpenAI, with Claude or Llama, you can prompt and it's quite predictable. You prompt and you know what you're going to get. With DeepSeek, you have to repeat the prompt sometimes. You have to switch the prompt. You have to restart a new session. You have to repeat several times not to provide a chain of thought. And it has a very good coverage of low resource languages, particularly Asian. And the higher models have a very good coverage of even middle resource languages like Catalan is absolutely native. The translations that it gives it in Catalan, which is not a major languages. And I've heard reports from smaller languages in India, Malayalam, languages that are spoken by 30 million people, which is very small in India, saying this is fluent. This is completely. This is something that nobody else has given us. So, from a scientific point of view, I'm also interested where these guys got the data, and probably they got the data not from internet sources, which is where the rest of the models did, and they use my data, and they use your data, Claudio, and you use your data, Veronica, everybody's web, New York Times website. They've been very clever, very astute, very clever in the way they've collected the data. They haven't done what everybody else has done, which is go to Common Crawl, download tons and tons of websites and train it with this. Just the fact that they can cover so many low resource languages proves that fact.
Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts. I want to take a second to say hello to everyone who is watching this or listening to this conversation. This is a live recording of Localization today. People from the Czech Republic, from Canada, from Buenos Aires, France, California, snowy Canada. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that. That's a real statement right there. And I want to once again remind everyone that in this recording of Localization today, we're talking about DeepSeek beyond the headlines. We are understanding some of the concerns around privacy, some of the use cases, some of the ways in which we can utilize it. And we've gone over some of those applications, the concerns, but yes, the applications as well. And I've just improvised for my amazing guests a question that bothers me, and is should we get used to this type of thing now, right? Where every quarter or so we're gonna get some other thing like, and now there's this new AI discovery that we've made that it's gonna and in other places, right? Because we're used to the large language model sort of interaction. So unless you apply the models, you don't see a difference, right? You're just like, okay, yeah, it's just like another thing that I ask something and it responds to me. What do you think could happen from now until the end of 2025? And I know I'm indulging myself. What do you see? What does your senses, your arachnic senses? Is that how you say it? Arachnid. In Spanish would be arachnid. What does it tell you? Or at least for the time being, what seems to be the next steps for people?
The next steps for people.
I think I'll answer this from a legal perspective. I think there was a new paper that came out. I talk about U.S. law a lot just because I'm based here, and also a lot of the models are based here. A new legal ruling from the U.S. Copyright Office came out that prompt outputs, like what you get from the models, are not copyrightable. They're public domain. I think this year they're going to finally stipulate the copyright debate on the training data, because they keep dancing around that issue. But I have no idea about the models. I feel like every single day I'm on edge that something's going to shift within the next hour, and none of us can rest. And it's just like, we just don't know if like tomorrow we're just going to like wake up and our lives are over. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But everything just is shifting so much constantly, and I'm sure everyone's exhausted trying to keep up with it. And I don't know if that's going to change.
Yeah. No, it's going to increase, Veronica. There's going to be a lot of DeepSeek moments in 25 and 26. Yeah. Definitely. There's going to be a lot more because the cat is out of the bag. What surprises me, though, is that it doesn't surprise me. I take that back. It doesn't surprise me. Is that DeepSeek had to come along to prove that we were being overcharged by closed AI I don't call it open AI anymore. I call it closed AI because they never publish anything open. Meta has, but OpenAI has never done anything open. They're the masters of being closed and secret. So I don't know whether DeepSeek is subsidized or not. They probably have the money to buy very efficient hardware, but it is proven that LLM, there is no business in LLMs. There is no money. People that are making LLMs are not creating LLMs to make money with the LLM. Are there for a much higher and longer reason and mission. LLMs are now, as Claudio says, you can include your LLM and build your applications. You can self-host it and build your. Johan Hummel, no less, was saying 2 days ago that they were adopting one version, I can't remember which one, 13, 14, of DeepL to serve their clients because, rather than consuming third-party applications in Azure or OpenAI, now they can run them internally. And Johan Hummel is a very well-known person in the industry. Invented Trados, no less. And it runs a very successful company. The point of building LLMs nowadays is probably to become the operating system of the future. That is the breakthrough that I'm waiting for. And probably we're only 2 years away from that, where you can have an LLM-like OS in a laptop and your apps are there. Okay. You want to translate, you hit the app, the translate app. You want to edit some, you want to type, you have the edit app. You want to do some calculation, your LLM will help you calculate the math. That is the real battle, and that is where the money is going. The LLMs, right in 2025, building an LLM just proves the fact that you're in the right. You're losing money. You will be losing money for
yeah. And one other point is that my perception is that there is also a shift in the value of companies nowadays. Try to explain. Until not long ago, the very focus, now we're not talking about multi-million, billion-dollar companies. We're talking about LSP, smaller companies. The value is if you put a lot of money to create your own models. The evaluation of a company is based on that. The value is there. Now that models, open source, open weight models are, through this movement of open source and so on, getting probably, if it continues, more and more accessible. So there are companies for their strategy investing so much money, and they become just a building blocks. So like open source, like you want to create a normal software, you go, I don't know, you decide in Python and you have a lot of frameworks and things that you can just plug and play and start to use and put your expertise in there and your ideas in there. What I'm trying to say is that there is now probably a shift from giving value to the deep tech, let's call it, in smaller, medium company, to the application layer. So now people have the ability really to create applications that hook people, that are designed in a way that satisfy really well the needs of people. And that is the new value. So then they create some value out of the, I call it the application layer, not the technology, the deep technology. This is a big opportunity, if you want, for many companies, smaller companies that have really the ability to own all the stack, not only relying on external API, which is still the most popular way to create this kind of company, but own the old technology stack without investing in the stack itself, which is out of reach for 99% of the companies. And the value will have to become really the application itself, which is a little bit a change, if you want, in the AI software space or application space.
That's right. Completely agree, Claudia. Completely agree. Yeah, and it's that power that's has been given back to all sort of companies. Imagine what Accenture or Price can do with a 617B.
All right, and yes, please go, Claudia.
No, and since we are in the language industry space, think about all the language service providers out there, which are not as big to create these large language models or speech models or multimodal model. They are not able to do this. It's just impossible. The opportunities that they now start to have to own, to create really, as I said before, the application around translation, interpretation, and whatever you call it. So there is a big opportunity also for the language industry to get into this business using these technologies.
Yes, this seems like exciting times for startups and innovators and entrepreneurs. It seems like the right time. And we'll probably see a lot of that. We are definitely getting more stories every day at Multilingual about this. So we of course are looking at your stories and what you're doing with AI. And we want to thank everyone for being here. We're coming to an end of this live recording of Localization today. For those that have joined us just recently, we are here with Veronica Hylák, co-founder of MetaLinguist, AI product innovator and host of the AI Almanac. Claudio Fantinuoli, CTO at KUDO, leader in real-time speech translation, and Manuel Herranz, CEO of Pangeanic, leader in AI, machine translation, and NLP innovation. I want to thank you for being here, Manuel, Claudio, Veronica. I think we could stay here for much longer, but I'm really looking forward to the next time we catch up on these and other conversations. Is there anything else you like to mention before we go? Any messages for everyone out there?
No, I think I've been following the comments from the audience, and they've been very switched on. Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, this raises a lot of questions. I mean, ultimately, everyone's first go-to is, okay, there's a lot of concern about DeepSeek from the hosting in China perspective, but how much do you actually trust the other providers? That's a question for another time. But yeah, it's definitely a huge shift, and I think it's gonna. I think the hope is that will give the smaller companies the ability to possibly compete with the bigger ones kind of moving forward. And that's the kind of biggest shift I saw with DeepSeek.
I agree. Veronica, this is the moment for getting our hands dirty and build stuff that are useful for the industry and for the people. And this technology.
Yep.
Or the trend shown by this technology is a good start.
Excellent. Thank you so much, all of you, for this conversation. We look out for the recording on the podcast Localization today. You can find on Spotify and any other podcast channel out there. This will be on YouTube right away. You should be able to do it. Manuel, Veronica, Claudio, thank you so much for joining us today. You will see an article of this in multilingual.com and our physical magazine. If you have not seen our physical magazine recently, we encourage you to go and see our digital version. And I just realized, please look out for our magazine. If you don't have a subscription, write to us and we'll hook you up with one. Until next time, this has been Localization today. My name is Eddie Arrieta. I'm the CEO here at Multilingual Media. And thank you, Camila, who is at the backstage helping us make sure all of this goes live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today and for the 1,300 registrations that we have. You'll see this content on your email along with other stuff that we'll send along your way. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, goodbye.